It's top of the hour, and it's time for Making a Difference. I'm your host, CJ Metcalfe, and I'd like to say that this show is sponsored by the Gulf Theater at the Military Heritage Museum, which, speaking of military heritage, on today's show, I would like to get into the details of the 4th of July. We all know the 4th of July is a time for everyone to get together, have lots of food, barbecue, fireworks, some beer drinking, um, a big get together. But people, let us not forget what the 4th of July means to us as a country. I'm going to give you a little history lesson today and go back to how this all came about, this very, very special day. As you know, the English, they migrated over to our country uh, way back. mm, A lot of it came over in the 1740s. They started coming over 1760s, and there was just a huge migration of the English coming over to the New World, a free country, free from England's rule, and they arrived here and they were free, a little bit unorganized because they had left England and the they wanted to leave the British government because the British had unfair taxes. It They just wanted out of there and they didn't want any more of it. So they got here and they established themselves and kind of grouped together and called themselves the United Colonies, for any better term. Uh, and so, meanwhile, these original settlers, they were farming and making their new life in the new world. Well, British, English people were coming over afterwards and they wanted to impose the British rule on the New World. And so these United Colonies said, that's what we left. We don't want any more of that. So therefore, the Revolutionary War broke out. And the British English soldiers that came over here, they were pushing on the settlers here, the United Colonies, uh, because they wanted to impose greater control over the colonies and make them repay the crown for its defense of them during the French and Indian War, which was 1754, 1763, somewhere like that. So, needless to say, these settlers um, chose to fight. And on April 19th, um, they started a war. April 19th of 1775, they started fighting. I think oh, let me see. I don't know which. It was up in Pennsylvania is where it first brought out. Excuse me while I look at my notes here and try to keep this straight. I don't want anyone going, "Hey, you don't know what you're talking about." But um, they started battling, and then finally, on September 3rd of 1783, the Peace of Paris was signed, and the American War for Independence officially ended. But the Revolutionary War, which was fought from 1775 to 1783, um, it arose from the tensions between residents of those original United Colonies and the colonial government, which represented the British Crown. So on July 4th of 1776, the Declaration of Independence from England was signed. Um, the makers of the Constitution, the Declaration, they had worked together to form an organized government. And so there was a whole bunch of them that were involved in putting together a structure that the new colonies could live by. And so they implemented it and declared independence on July 4th of 1776. So um, the independence, which was announcing the colony's separation from Britain, fine line, no more a part of it. Uh, this was it when it was written. It got officially adopted on by Congress by the Continental Congress on July 4th of 1776, and the 13 American colonies, they severed their political connections to Great Britain, and that's that's what we live by today, is freedom. So I'd like to get into also the flag. We recently had Flag Day, and 4th of July is well celebrated using our patriotic colors. And as you know, I'm a very avid patriot. I'm a very advocate for veterans. I work with veterans. I am a voice for veterans. I do anything I can for veterans because throughout our United States history, those original days back when the colonists fought, we have had military fighting for that freedom ever since. They fight to keep the liberties, the peace in our United States. And I can't thank them enough for what they do. So with every war, just remember that's what they're fighting for, is to secure the peace and the freedom that we enjoy since 1776. I want to get into Betsy Ross. There is a lot of question and debate over her and what she actually did. Betsy, she was a seamstress and an upholsterer, and she started out by sewing uniforms, tents, flags for the Continental Army. And in, I don't know, it was in late May or early June of 1776, um, General George Washington, who was the financier of along with the financier of the Revolutionary War, who was Robert Morris, and Colonel George Ross, a relative. These guys met up with her, and allegedly she was presented with a sketch of a flag that they, along with some other people who signed the Constitution, had gotten together and they combined their ideas. And this included flags from ships and this, that, and the other. And they got together and they drew up a sketch. And so during this meeting, she was presented with this sketch that featured 13 red and white stripes and 13 six-pointed stars. And she was asked if she could make a flag to match the proposed design. And Ross agreed, but she had a couple of changes that she suggested, including arranging the stars in a circle. And she took a piece of fabric and she folded it up into 6 points. And then she took another piece of fabric and she folded it up and went snip, snip, snip and made the 5-point star, which was much easier for her to make. So after discussing this with these guys, they agreed to, their design plus her input, and had her sew up the first American flag that they would accept as a national flag under the new Declaration of Independence. And her deceased husband's uncle is the one that had recommended her for the job. So she was connected with the new government. She had been obviously working for them, sewing the tents and whatnot. So it kind of made sense to go to her to have her sew this. So and she also sewed a lot of flags for Navy ships. That's part of the American flag. It's taken from the history of some of the flags of Navy ships. So, did Betsy Ross sew the first American flag? Yeah, she did, but it wasn't her creation. So I think, history as we know it nowadays, we're proving that there are changes, little adjustments, little tweaks to our history, and the whole hoopla about Betsy Ross is in my terms way overrated. She was paid to do this, to sew a flag, and so it wasn't something that she came up with on her own. Um, I know the history showed it that okay, those guys met up with her in June to have her make the American flag. Well, then um, I'm sorry, they met up with her in early May. Then on May 29th, she was paid a large sum of money from the Pennsylvania State Navy Board for making ship flags, more ship flags in their colors and everything. So then it was just a few weeks later, on June 14th, when Congress adopted the Stars and Stripes as our national flag. And she continued to make flags over 50 years. Many of much were done through government contracts. So, um, you know, there's so much history behind July 4th and its celebrations. So when you get together for your family get together, please keep in mind what it took to have this day of celebration. We rightly so deserve to celebrate this day, but it didn't come easy. Much blood was shed. And in that Revolutionary War stemmed so many things from that we still see today, one of which are flag traditions. And the, at that time, the soldiers that fought in the Revolutionary War, many of them were being killed and they'd be buried. And women were going around noticing that these graves had no attention to them. So their hearts felt for these lonely soldiers lying buried in a grave. So they'd go around and gather flowers and put them on their grave just to show that somebody remembered them. And these ladies developed what is now called Daughters of the American Revolution. And to this day, abbreviated DAR, to this day, they still are a patriotic organization focused on veterans and building the veteran awareness in the community. And then there's also Sons of the American Revolution, which are the male part. And these two organizations, you get into them through genealogy, and that is proving that you have direct lineage to a soldier in the Revolutionary War, thus being called Daughters of the American Revolution. So it's if any of you think you have any family that has been here since the 1760s in that vicinity, You might look into seeing if you qualify to be a part of one of these organizations. It's kind of a privileged organization, and I hear say that about 2/3 of Americans, all Americans, they have some relation going back to the Revolutionary War. So it's worth checking into. Come and I am one, so come and be a part. My fifth great grandfather, I believe that's, yeah, I think it was fifth. Um, he fought. Well, he grew up with and was neighbors with George Washington. Used to play with him and things like that. Well, when the war broke out, he wanted to go and sign up and fight alongside George Washington, and George looked at him and told him that he wouldn't make a very good soldier because he was too short and fat and he wouldn't be able to run and he'd get killed. Ah, that's something that runs in my family, only not the shortness. But when you dig into these things, you can find books that have been written and include parts of your family, and it's just amazing what you come up with. So hey, look into it. It's very, very much worth it. Now, also with the 4th of July coming up and the patriotism, I want to reiterate which I talked about in a previous show. Please, people, have respect for our flag. There's been so much bloodshed over that flag, and the golden rule that the flag code says is that the flag is to be treated as a living thing. Okay? It is always to be flown. It's never to be tied up or bound. It's to be flowing freely in the wind and the breeze, and never, never put any image of the flag on clothing. Use the flag as a decoration for a table covering. Wear it on a t-shirt. Um, or patches. Now, the patches have an exception, and that is uh, people of the military are allowed to wear the patch, and they wear it in such a way that the star field is closest to their heart. So if they're wearing it on their left shoulder, that star field is going to be towards their heart. If it's on their right shoulder, the flag field is going to be, or the star field is going to be towards their heart. Now, military and other political organizations, honor guard. I know the Boy Scouts, can wear patches because they are of um, a political, well, not a political, but they are an organization that is a patriotic organization. And some of the questions that have come up is, can you wear a flag pin? Well, yes, you can. It is to be worn on the left lapel, again, closest to your heart. The flag pin is the only acceptable image of the flag that you can actually wear. And though they say that even it is reserved for upper um, political people or officers, whatnot, that's kind of a gray area. You can go to the flag code. If you Google flag code, you will go in there and they have all the flag etiquette listed there. But when I'm talking about don't use the flag as an article of clothing, well, what happens when it gets worn out? What do? Use it for a paint shirt? That doesn't look too good. And when you get done with it, what do? Throw it in the trash? Now the flag is in the trash. I mean, and also, would you wear a living thing? Hmm. Well, some people might. Um, the other thing, paper plates, napkins. I know the retailers sell them as stars and stripes, but don't buy them because what happens? You're going to eat on a living thing. Ew, not me. And then when you're done, again, in the trash it goes. And there is an image of our flag in the trash. So don't buy it. Now, if you can get napkins that are just the stars, good deal. If you can buy napkins that are just the stripes, good deal. But it's the image of a flag is what they want you to stay away from. Now, there are artist renditions, and that's perfectly acceptable. Matter of fact, I've got something on right here, which is um, this is an artist rendition where you get that I'm patriotic, but the image of the flag is not there. So, and my hat that I have on, as you can see, it's showing my patriotic respect without having the flag on my head. So these things you buy, enjoy, show your colors, but just be careful how you show them. I know even Cracker Barrel sells these shirts that stars are on one shoulder, stripes are on the other. Well, that's getting into that gray area there because it's very close to being an image of the flag. So just stop and think, do you want to eat on a living thing? Do you want to wear a living thing? Do you want to throw away a living thing? So it's, if you look at the DAR website, they have an artist rendition of a flag. And all the publications that come out, yeah, you can read them and then toss them in the trash. That's no problem. But they're very careful not to have an image of the flag. So I hope you all got something out of today's show. Just keep in mind as you celebrate the 4th of July. And next week, I'm going to be giving you some tidbits on little easy fixes around the house. So tune in next Thursday, 10 o'clock, Making a Difference.